what would you say, Sloan? How does one actually find their authentic voice?
Well, I feel like the first thing you have to do to find your authentic voice is to first know your message and know your why. That starts with knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you believe, and then presenting that authentically in your own way. And there's a lot of things that can influence that, as far as mentors, speakers, coaches, books, so many ways that you can discover who you are and what you stand for, but being able to then present that in a way that is authentic and true is probably the first step, is the why behind the message. And so I personally have spent a decade of discovering my authentic voice by just truly getting to know myself, getting to know what I stand for, getting to know what I believe, and then being able to communicate that through experiences.
Now, Sloan, were there any moments in your life when you felt like you did not have your authentic voice? I want to like go back, or maybe sometimes you still feel it now. But as I'm saying this, are there any moments that's popping up? Maybe you didn't feel like you had your voice. Like, can you describe to us what experience you had and maybe how you got over it, if you remember any?
Oh my gosh, so many. Imposter syndrome is real, right? And I think there's been so many moments in my life where I have been like, who was that person? Like, do I even know her? Like, what is she talking about? I recall, throughout college, throughout high school, one memory that's really popping out right now is when I competed at Miss Texas USA. I had this false concept, and which is totally false in the beauty queen world, of who I thought I was supposed to be rather than who I really was. And I presented that person in such a inauthentic way, and the judges read right through it, thank goodness, because that would have been a tough year trying to pretend to be someone I wasn't. But it was that experience, one of many experiences, of just showing up inauthentically and being exhausted by it, and this false concept of trying to be perfect and present this perfect version of myself, that I realized that that's a lie in itself, and it's exhausting, and it's not relatable, and people can see through that. So it was when I started to really show up as my broken yet beautiful self, is when I really started to have authentic connections and build those true relationships, that my public speaking became more of a conversation rather than like a preaching, right? Me trying to present this facade of presenting this person that I thought people wanted to see. So instead, I switched my mindset away from that perfection paralysis, because no one wants that, and grounded myself in who I really was and that authentic version of myself, and opened myself up to more authentic relationships and connections. And that's when I really started to get recognized for my public speaking abilities.
Yeah. Now, Sloan, when you were saying that you really started showing up as yourself, like what did you mean? Like, how did you start showing up as yourself? Like, maybe something clicked in your mind, but what was the difference for you from trying to be perfect to, okay, now I'm showing up as myself?
Absolutely. I got to know myself. I got to know what I stood for. I got to know my core values. I got to hold up a mirror to some parts of me that I didn't love. A lot of humility had to come into that. A lot of self-awareness and expertise, and getting to know that while I have this beautiful set of skills and characteristics about myself that I really, really love, there are definitely a larger span of improvement that I need to work on, and some growth opportunities. And when I was humble enough to kind of explore and dive into those areas of my life, is when I really got to discover, like, hey, it's okay to show up here and to talk about these things and be proud of them, because they're part of who I am. And it's because of these vulnerable moments of maybe allowing ego and pride to get in my way, having that imposter syndrome at times. All of that is very real and raw, and people relate to that and experience that. So by me sharing, yeah, I have that too, but I use it as fuel rather than a fire extinguisher on my passions, is when I began to really thrive.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Sloan, if people don't know too much about the Glow movement, can you tell us more? Like, how did you start? Like, what is it that you guys do? Tell us more. We would love to learn more.
Absolutely. So through the Glow movement, Glow actually stands for Growing Leaders of Worth. And I founded this company almost 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And it started off as it was actually called the Glow Getter Project, because it was just me showing my personal development experience and my growth process. But through that process of personal growth and development, I started to find some hiccups in that. And the first one is, for a project to be successful, there has to be a start, a middle, and an end. And if you have even begun to start your personal development journey or self-awareness journey, you know that there's no end to it. It's a continuous effort. But what I also found is that there was a community forming around me who were also on a personal development journey, who were like-minded leaders who were constantly investing in themselves and growing and wanting to be better, and that were no longer hiding behind this mask of false perfection, but being open and vulnerable and saying, yeah, this is all of me. This is the mess. And this is where I want to grow and I want help to grow. And so this beautiful community formed, and Glow Getter was so singular. So we kind of shifted our branding and our mission from the Glow Getter Project to the Glow Movement, which is so well known today. And our heart is really that, the coaching. And I get to work with my clients either one-on-one, I get to work with couples, I get to work with teams. And then I have larger packages where we get to work more extensively to kind of get to discover who you really are and what you stand for. So that's exactly how my whole purpose is to help you find your inner glow. And our little tagline is so that you can grow and glow.
Oh, I love that. So how does one actually begin to find the inner glow? Like, I know you have, of course, this is what you do, but can you give us a taste if people are interested? Like, how does one actually begin?
Yeah, I think there's lots of things that you can do without a coach. I personally start with my own journey, which is with the Enneagram. It's something, I'm a certified Enneagram coach, and I'm incredibly passionate about it because what's so beautiful about this assessment is it focuses more on the why behind the behavior opposed to just the behavior, which is really powerful. And then we use that core motivation, core fear, core triggers to help understand what might be holding you back from wanting to be able to public speak in a large room or going after your goals and your dreams. So we tailor it that way. But the foundation of it and the heart behind it is really just a self-discovery and being self-aware. So I think journaling is really powerful. Getting to being able to identify and having accountability partners to notice things that are happening and some behaviors, and then taking the time to ask yourself, why is that behavior continuously showing up in my life? But yeah, I think from simple self-work, I think reflection and meditation is so powerful. Of course, reading powerful books. I can have a novel, but for me personally, the biggest eye-opener for me was the Enneagram.
Yeah. Now, what number are you? It's
I'm
numbers, right? Number three?
It's numbers. I'm a 3. So we could dive into all of that, but I want to save your listeners my tangent on the Enneagram in your audience. But basically, each one has a core irritant. So the top 3, 8, 9, and 1 share an irritant. 2, 3, and 4 share an irritant, and 5, 6, and 7 share an irritant. And that irritant kind of stems a motivation and a trigger that might be showing up in your behavior, such as why the imposter syndrome is showing up for you.
Now, if you're watching this live or even the replay of this, if you know your number, drop it in the comments below. Now, when it comes to speaking, maybe you know this more than I do, but I do kind of like a different personality style when it comes to speaking. Are there certain ways things that you notice if there are certain numbers? What do you call it? I'm just calling them numbers.
Number type, that's all works.
The number type. Are there certain ways that they can improve their speaking, or usually the way they speak? Is that making sense? I'm trying to formulate my question right now as well.
So, again, we want to focus away from the behavior and focus really on the motivation. I use an example of making you cookies because that's a behavior, right? To make you cookies is an action. But a 1, 2, and 3 will all make you cookies, but they'll do it for different reasons, right? The 1 will make you cookies because they think it's the right thing to do. The 2 will make you cookies because they want to be your ideal person and they want to help you. And the 3 will make you the best cookies you've ever had because they're trying to be the best, right? So it comes back to that motivation or that trying statement. So from when it comes to public speaking, to understand your motivation of sharing your message and your why, it can help you overcome the fear of speaking. Then come across more authentically, if you will. So the one's motivation is to do the right thing. So if the one can channel that this is the right thing to do to share my message and be bold in my message, then they can have the confidence to overcome any imposter syndrome that may stem from that, right? The two, if their message can help people, that's a great motivation. The three is they know that they can help redefine success for people as they've redesigned for them. And the greatest lesson a three can do is embrace vulnerability and authenticity. And I can go all the way around for each number, but I think overall, the important thing to know when it comes to public speaking and the Enneagram is to understand the why. I think and understand that the physical behavior behind it is all natural. It's okay to be nervous. I was nervous before coming on here and I speak all the time, right? But it's just about wanting to show up, like, know your message. And I know this message is important because I've been that person that has spoken inauthentically. I've been that person who's wanting to be perfect and be fake and comes across that way, and people don't relate to that. And so when I was having this perfection paralysis, that really repelled people. So to kind of break free of that and understand the why behind my message, the rest of the behaviors and the nerves kind of become subpar to the original message.
Now, Sloan, when you talk about why, we can make up a scenario or maybe use a real person. Can we take a person, made up or real, and they're going into a speaking situation? Maybe it's a meeting, maybe it's Clubhouse, maybe it's a public speaking situation. Can we talk about if they don't have their why, like what can they do to tap into it? So I kind of want to make this more real life, as in, okay,
yeah.
Maybe we're going into, let's say it's a high stakes presentation to the board, or maybe it's a public speaking event to 1,000 people next week. Like how now you're talking about tapping into the why of our message. How does it relate to, I'm going to speak to the board, or I'm going to speak to 1,000 people? How does it relate, and how can we put it into action? Like what would we have to do?
Absolutely. I definitely think that I'm sorry if I'm echoing back at you. There we go. Is that helping a little?
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay. So I just think the important thing is to know your message, know why you're saying that. But if you're coming in, it's always important to have an agenda. And I think oftentimes people walk on stage and they have a topic and they have these things, but why is that important, and the agenda behind it? So for example, what do you want your audience to take away? So, okay, so you're informing them about XYZ. The board, you want XYZ change, or to 1,000 people, you want them to imply this action or this mindset or buy this product or whatever it is. Like, you have to be able to have an agenda beyond the message, right? So you want them to take this action regardless, right? We all have an action. Like if I'm speaking about wanting to have more confidence, like I'm going to have action steps that I want these people to take. So that's my mission. But why is that important? And be able to paint vision for your audience to why that action means something. It's coming back to the why. So you have your personal why, and then you keep asking why, right? So it's like, okay, I want to speak because I want to share this message. Why do you want to share that message? Well, I want the board to take this action. Why is that important? Well, because that'll help this and this. Why should they care? If you're answering these questions and deliver that in a way where you're able to paint vision for people and you're focused more on solving the problem opposed to presenting, that's when people get inspired by your message. I think we get too caught up in public speaking about, I say y'all all the time. I'm a Southern girl. Y'all's going to come out. I say, I say I say, yeah. I am not a textbook perfect speaker, but people hear me and they feel me because I'm passionate about what I'm saying, and I understand why I'm saying it. It's more than just, hey, this is what's happening, and that's because, and I'm trying to check points of what I'm supposed to do, and I'm so worried about my ums and my likes and my yeahs. I kind of let all that go, and if it comes out, it's real and it's authentic, but I know why I'm there, and someone will relate to my energy and my why.
Got it. Now, should we have, of course, this is life, but should we have like a big why? Like, for example, let's say I'm a speaker and I give the same message, or people that's working in organizations and their message change all the time. The leaders are just giving them a bunch of stuff. They don't even know why. It's like, what are some of the questions? I know we're asking like, what is our why? But can you give us some examples of like, what can we ask ourselves to figure out our why?
Yeah, I think the biggest, it really depends on the topic, I'm assuming, but I'm trying to do a more generic example. But for me, for example, like, why was it important for me to come on this podcast with you, right? When when you reached out to me, one, I'm a huge fan of you. And yes, I wanted to support what you're doing and being a part of it, but it also was bigger than that. I think oftentimes people think that they have to speak like Kit, right? Or they have to speak like Sloan, or they have to speak like Obama, right? They all have those legendary speakers, or Les Brown, or all these inspiring people. And they get so caught up in mimicking and trying to show up as them that they forget to ask themselves, well, why am I showing up? What's my message? What's my voice? And rather, if I'm talking about public speaking, or I'm talking about the Enneagram, or I'm talking about even just ending human trafficking through my nonprofit, like, no matter what I'm talking about, my why and who I am as a person is to shed light, right? I want to be a light, and I want to shed that light. And so that comes through in different ways. And for this topic, for example, I knew that I wanted to be a light, and I wanted to shine light on the people who are listening to know that someone needs their message. Someone needs the way that you can say it. Someone needs your story. They need all of your pieces. They need who you are to show up on that stage, regardless of it is. I'm in a morning room on Clubhouse that I share the stage with 5 other moderators, and we are 5 of the most different people, but we can all say the 5, like, we could all have a script, and all 6 of us could read the script, and I kid you not, 5 people in the audience would be like, oh, did you hear how Sloan said that? Oh no, did you hear when Anthony said this? Oh, but Dr. Natalie, when she said this. And we all said the same thing, because I think the most important thing people need to realize is that their message is the most important, and your heart behind it is what people think. I think we get so caught up in the practicalities of, which are important. I think there's definitely some tactical things that you can apply. Slowing yourself down, lowering the octave of your voice, breathing exercises. I mean, there's so many practical things you can do. Cardio, talking while on the treadmill to control your breath and your pace. And public speaking is a cardio workout. It's a breath workout. So getting in shape, if you will. There's so many practical things we can do. But the reality of it is, people aren't going to remember what you say. They're going to remember how you feel. So if I think more importantly than all of those, rather than the script, rather than your speech, rather than your points, all of those things, if you are channeled into who you are and what you believe, and all of that will come naturally.
Wow, Sloan, that's great. I hope if you're watching this, you're loving everything that Sloan is talking about. So, Sloan, I want to ask you personally, how have you used your voice to inspire others, or maybe through social impact?
Yeah, I love this topic. So that's probably what the best way that's my why. To be honest with you, if you want to know why I got out of my comfort zone to speak and to be vulnerable and to be real and to show that I let go of the perfect paralysis and just be authentically me, broken and beautiful and all that I am, is for social impact. I do it through the GLOW movement, where I work with clients in one-on-one, in couples, and in teams to help them find who they really are and build that relationship with who they are, so they are able to go out, build confidence and unshakable confidence, and authentically present themselves to the world consistently. But then also through my foundation, the Glow Getter Foundation is an organization where we believe the most impactful leaders invest in other leaders. And we do that in 3 ways. We do that through our Glow Getter Gala and Awards, where we honor 3 women who are making a global impact. The Spark Change Initiative Scholarship, where we invest in the personal development of current and future leaders. And then my personal favorite, the Spark Change Ambassadors, where every month we come together to take on new initiatives that are voted on by our ambassadors to make a difference in this world. And so we believe that when we all do our small part together, we can make a big impact. But without my voice and each of their voices, we would not be able to bring awareness or conduct service projects or fundraise for these important causes, such as ending human trafficking, feeding hungry children, providing important resources to the homeless, like bringing awareness to suicide prevention and mental health. These are all causes that we've been able to use our voices for, because we were willing to be vulnerable, real, and raw about all of these.
Now, can I ask you, let's say in some settings, it could be hard to be authentic, to be vulnerable in situations when, let's say, people don't want to open up. What would you have to say about that? If someone just says, okay, just be you, be authentic, be vulnerable, it's easier said than done. But how can one really open up if maybe they don't want to, or maybe the situation doesn't, it's not right for them.
Yeah, and not every situation's right. There has been plenty of scenarios that I've walked in. It is not my people. It is not my tribe. It is not my people. I am not in the right room. I am not the right fit for them. And I had two choices in that matter. And 10 years ago, I definitely would have allowed the room to influence me and to kind of shift who I was and put on that mask, right? When we start to get in the concept of imposter syndrome, we start to hide behind the mask that we think we're supposed to be, right? Oh, like they're expecting this of us, so I'm going to put this mask on, and it gets exhausting. We can't hold up the mask forever, right? And people honestly read through that. Like if I was wearing a mask right now, you would be able to see right through me, right? And that's exhausting, and it's horrible. So my suggestion is you have two options. One, get out of that environment. Like that's the first thing you can do. And then the second thing you can do, which is my personal favorite, is rather than allowing your environment to influence you, you influence the room. I cannot tell you how many rooms I have walked into and previous speakers have been like, wow, it's a dead audience, or there's no engagement, or wow, everyone's just like not here and they're like bored, they're like numb, like good luck, like just so much negativity. And I could have easily walked on that stage and been like, oh man, okay, like I guess we're all super negative today and like downer, all that. And like that was the tone that was set before me, but that's not who I am. So I chose to influence the room opposed to letting the room influence me. And again, that comes from the confidence of knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you bring, and getting into the specific details of not just your message, but also who you are in presenting that message. Like I know that I can make an impact. I know I'm a self-worth advocate. I know I'm a servant leader. I know that I'm a strength finder, and all these themes that I carry with me, and I'm a light, and I want to be that light. I want to shine things. I want to be that light on stage. And if that means shifting and influencing the room, I'm proud of being able to do that. But it takes the confidence and the self-awareness to be able to influence that. And that comes from a lot of personal shadow work and personal development.
Sloan, this is great. And if you're watching this right now, I hope you are taking notes. Sloan, if there are anything that people can do, if they're watching this video and they say, yeah, I want to take action right now, are there things that they can do, one thing or two things that they can immediately take action on after this video?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to declare the themes of your life. I think that's the best thing, like away from the roles. I feel like we often get so caught up in like when we ask, like, tell us about yourself, you want to tell me all the things you're doing, right? You want to tell me about your job. You want to tell me if you're a wife or a husband or a parent, or if you're a student, like you want to tell me about all the things you do and all the roles. I want you to strip all that away and really, really take the time to say, if I had all of that taken away from me, who am I? Because that was the biggest pivotal shift for me. When I was able to acknowledge that this is who I am, regardless of the situation, I was able to bring that energy to every message, every opportunity, every role I played. So I would really encourage everyone, and that can start with simply just listing characteristics about yourself that you love. Like there's plenty of, like, you can literally type in like characteristics list on Google, and there's plenty out there, and like circle the ones that resonate with you, and then see the themes. Where are those themes showing up in your life? And come up with of titles and roles and themes that are separate from the roles, I should say, that that is what you bring to every table. So earlier you heard mine, that I am very passionate about being a self-worth advocate. I'm very passionate about being a servant leader, and I'm very passionate about helping people find their strengths. And that shows up whether I'm being a mom or a wife or a coach or public speaking. Like that is my mission and my themes, and I allow that to carry over. So I feel like that is step one when you're putting together your message.
Yeah, that's great. I want to go back to the Enneagrams really quick.
Yeah.
Since you work so much on it, can you like tell other people, like, you know, when you look at other, it could be strangers, it could be people, like, do you know like what kind of numbers they are? If you would look at me, of course, we didn't chat for too long, but can you tell like, Kit might be this, or...
I have a personal rule that I do not type anybody.
Okay.
And I'm judging you based on behavior, not the why behind the behavior. So it goes through through my typing session, it's definitely a discovery process that we do together, but I will never tell you your type. I have ways to guide you to your core type. But again, if I'd be judging you, it would be truly of your expression style. And we all have, and that shows up in your thought process, in your feelings, in your action style. But again, those are all expression styles. That doesn't tell me your core motivation. So oftentimes people get confused by expressions and not core. But yeah, I do always have my guesses, but I do have a personal policy that I honor you and I would never ever want to mistype you. So that's a journey that we could go on together.
Got it. Speaking about the why, well, you can judge me anytime, Sloan.
No, never.
What if, I know we're talking about the importance of, yes, we should know our why, but how can you tell or help someone get out of that cycle of, oh, I got to keep on doing this. I got to keep on doing, they go into a meeting or they go into the next thing without even know why they're doing it. And it kind of like, they're in a rat race. Like, how do you think you can tell someone to say, pause, you're actually burning right now and you need to get out of it and start asking more. You know what I mean? It's like, we're all so busy.
Yeah, I think that's when friendly fire comes into play, accountability partners come into play, a healthy coach, a healthy mentor. Like I heard a wonderful expression, or I think it was a few weeks ago on Clubhouse, ironically, that said that the directions are on the outside of the box, right? So if we get stuck in our box and start piling things on us, we never get to see our way out. So it's about having those people who are willing, like if we surround ourselves with yes people all the time, we don't grow from that. So if I'm surrounding with people who are constantly telling me like, oh, you're perfect, you're wonderful, like that was great. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful, right? I love that loving construction criticism, and you have to find people. But there's a difference between loving construction criticism that we call friendly fire, that's there because they're invested in your growth and they see potential in you, rather than jealousy and negativity. And it takes some discernment to be able to distinguish the difference, right? If someone is beating you down for beating you down's sake, that is unhelpful. So it's about choosing the right people to be those accountability partners, to lovingly coach you. And I always say, like, don't take advice from someone that you wouldn't want to be exactly like, right? Or you don't want to be if you don't respect them enough to take a place in their shoes, then they don't need to be giving you advice on that topic. So if you are wanting to grow in public speaking, then get a public speaking coach. If you're wanting to go on a self-discovery journal, find a coach who helps you, like an identity and self-awareness coach. If you want to grow in a certain area, having that accountability partner is crucial. Showing up to listening to podcasts and stuff like this is so important because it helps you even just tune into your awareness of what's happening. But yeah, I think self-reflection and slowing down is something that I'm guilty of. It's something that I want to be intentional of because, again, I needed to understand the why behind it. Asking me to slow down when I have some very big goals, to reflect on how far I've come. Like, oh no, at first I would have been like, that's pointless. Like, that's slowing me down. I have big goals to achieve. Like, why are you telling me to slow down? That's not efficient. But when someone explained to me the why and the power of that, I was able to slow down and reflect, right? I was able to reset, refresh, and see what I could do better, what I could do, what I needed to work on, what I needed to admit. And in those moments of reflection is how I got to my goal faster. So I think it's the power of the pause, right? Taking that time to breathe and then also allow someone to read the directions outside the box to help kind of guide you in the right direction.
Now, Sloan, personally for you, when you ask your why, do you write them down or do you mentally ask yourself? I know there's many different ways, but how do you personally do it? Let's say in the past week or even today.
Oh, I'm a big journaler. I have to write it down. I have to visualize. So I was actually describing this process. Someone asked me, like, how do I dive into this a few weeks ago? And it was so funny to kind of marry the two because it's kind of this beautiful blend between this manic brainstorm that kind of sets in the clarity and the calm after the storm, right? That is my process of discovering. And so I wrote down everything I cared about. It was like I had a dry erase marker and I was writing on my windows. I have a whole wall of windows and it looked like a crazy person, like beautiful mind moment, like all over the place, spaz. My husband walks in, he goes, oh, she's on her mission, like let her be, And I'm like all over the place, like everything I care about, arrows, drawings, all of this. And then I just sat with it. And I absorbed it and I had vision. And then I was very intentional about journaling my why, my mission, what I want to see, not only in myself, the why about why I'm seeing it. And it comes into a process of like, okay, why am I showing up in certain ways and what does that mean? So I'm able to just kind of reflect and sit in the behavior of something and then really journal as to why that's happening and keeps a habit as reoccurring in my life. But what's really fun is I'm always dated. I think that's a big misconception is people don't always date their notes. And I've got to go back from like 2018 and be like, oh, wow, like I love that person for who she was then. And she was doing the best she could with what she knew at that moment. And I love her for that, but I know better. So now I get to do better and I get to see the growth. But without having that moment of reflection in the moment to document what was happening there, I would have never reflected and noticed the growth that has happened in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I think journaling, like what you're saying, is very powerful. Just being and most importantly, date it so you can sometimes look back. Now, I have to be honest. I was cleaning the house the other day. I saw all these journals that I had for like 10 years ago. I don't know why. I just threw them away. Because I don't, in my mind, I don't look at it again. But I think the process of doing it is powerful for me. I'm one of those people. I just go. I dive head in, and then sometimes I just don't look back. But journaling, yeah, it's extremely powerful.
And it's something that I think it's also just the process. You don't have to look back. It's somewhere in that beautiful filing cabinet that is our brain, right? And there's something about like physically putting pen to paper that kind of like hardens it in that memory block of ours. But I also think it's also fun. A practice I've been doing is like writing letters to myself from the future. I've done it for the past. I actually did it. When I won Mrs. Kentucky, I wrote a letter as if I won prior to winning, right? And I just wrote a letter of like, hey, I'm so proud of you. You accomplished your goal. You had these obstacles and you overcame them. And I was very specific in like how it looked. Like I visualized like what it was like to walk on stage, what it was like to hold the mic, what it was like in all of those moments. And then the next 6 months, I worked my booty off to make sure that came into fruition. And I think those are a fun way too of using journaling. Like you said, that it's hard for you to go back sometimes. So why don't you go future and write a future letter to yourself?
Too bad you can't write that letter now and then put it in the mail and it'll come back to you 1 year later in the mail.
So that's something that I've been at a lot of workshops with. I've incorporated that into my coaching. I know other coaches that do that you can actually have an accountability partner or a coach. I know I do that with my clients where I'll have them write a letter to themselves and then I'll mail it to them at the deadline they have.
Oh, that's awesome. There's one thing that I do. It's the same thing, but it's on video.
Brilliant.
So you save it and then send it a year later. And then on Gmail or whatever it is. But yeah, those are powerful.
Or an email. That's a great idea. Like email it to yourself.
Hey Sloan, if people are loving what you're saying and if they want to follow you or work with you, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media. Instagram is probably the best way to connect with me these days. My personal account is Sloan_Reid. That's SLOAN_Reid, REID, or at Glow Movement, which is GLOWMVMT. Both of those are on Instagram. Or you can check out our website, www.glowmovement.com, and that is www.glowmvmt.com.
Awesome. Now, usually at the end of the interview, Sloan, I ask all my guests to give us your 1 minute message of the topic today. So what is your 1 minute message of how to find your authentic voice?
I guess it would be, if I had to say 1 minute recap, it would be to just really spend time discovering who you are, what you stand for, and why you are wanting to share the message behind it. I think the message is so important and your message matters, but you have to know why it matters and why it matters to you, why it matters to your audience, and what kind of impact it can have if it reaches enough people. So when you paint that vision for yourself, it makes it easier for you to paint that vision for others. I also want to encourage you not to let imposter syndrome get in the way, that it doesn't matter who's doing what, sharing your message. You have a unique voice and that will resonate with people that their voice can't. And I would also say that don't be afraid. someone needs to hear from you. Someone's waiting on your yes. Someone's waiting on the other side of your yes. And who knows that what you are by you saying no and holding yourself back, who you're limiting. So someone's counting on you to show up authentically.
Yes. And so if you're watching this still right now, live or the replay, and if you haven't taken the time today to ask yourself why, after watching this video, take a pause, ask yourself why. Why are you going to do the next things that you're going to do today or maybe next week? Just don't jump into it, right? So if you are loving what Sloan is saying, again, go follow her on Instagram or go to her website that's linked in below. Sloan, I just want to say thank you for joining us today.
No, I'm so honored and so blessed. You are an amazing human, and I just love what you're doing. I love your mission and your why of helping people find their voice and speak more effectively and share their message in a very effective and precise way. It's incredibly powerful what you're doing, and it is so important. And so bless you, bless what you're doing. And I'm so excited for your audience, for you to continue to do your work.
Thank you so much, Sloan. And everyone, thank you for watching. We'll see you another time.